Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. Cody Brundage versus Rodolfo Vieira. Cody Brundage is 8-3. Rodolfo Vieira is 8-2. Brundage he's got an 8-3 record again. 4 TKO victories, 3 submissions, 1 decision. His 3 losses come 2 via KO, 1 via decision. And they're all inside the UFC or Contender Series. William Knight knocked him out on the Contender Series with Travis Brown elbows and then some ground and pound. Nick Maximov beat him by decision in a fight that was very close. You could argue Brundage won, certainly. He was definitely in that, and he was fighting hard at the very end. So, can't knock his cardio, but I did think Maximov won. Anyway, Michal Oleksiejczuk beat him by TKO in his last one. That was a fight in which Cody Brundage was doing well early on. Really welcomed him to the middleweight division with some good takedowns and some good wrestling pressure, and instead he wasn't able to mount any offense, any sustainable offense, and Michal came out from underneath him, caught him cold, and took him out with a TKO immediately once the tables turned, which wasn't a great look. But I can't say, I know I said after the fight, he kind of just crumbled or whatever. I remember saying that. But still, Cody's shown some good traits as a fighter in other fights. Knocking out Tresean Gore and submitting Dalcha Lungiambula deep into round 1 in both fights, especially the Dalcha fight. That was a fight in which I thought he was being overwhelmed, really. He was clearly losing that one. But, look, the guy's a very capable wrestler. And it's... I think he's got one path to victory, but I don't know. Rodolfo Vieira seems a little vulnerable in other ways, where maybe Cody Brundage has more than just sprawl and brawl. I was listening to an interview with him lately, and he said he was going to be the only guy that engages in grappling with Rodolfo Vieira, tries to take him down. I don't know if you want to separate yourself from the pack in that way. It's not like Rodolfo Vieira is going to be lost if you take him to the ground. He may not be Mr. Triangle Choke, being such a brick shithouse, but he certainly knows his P's and Q's on the ground in any position. And I think with his strength and leverage and whatever, despite Cody being the better wrestler, he could be hitting sweeps and finding himself on top. Rodolfo Vieira, he's got a record of 8-2. He's an elite world champion jiu-jitsu guy, one of the few guys when I'm breaking down his fight, I say submission is off the table because you're not going to submit this guy. And of course that's bullshit because one of his losses is by submission. Fluffy Hernandez got him with what I think is the best submission in MMA history. I'll say that, although maybe Muniz breaking Jacare's arm might be. I don't fucking know. Either way, Rodolfo Vieira is a world champion jiu-jitsu guy, and that's where 7 of his 8 wins come from. He's never won a decision. He's got 1 TKO, 7 submissions. We've seen a few of them in the UFC already. This guy, he's not just a guy that, a butt-scooting jiu-jitsu guy. This guy is a physical fucking tank. He has wrestling capability beyond his wrestling training just because he's such an athlete. And he's in his prime right now at 33 years old. But he's got other concerns, his cardio. I think if he really goes for it, even if he's dominating his guy, getting in the full mount and whatever, and working him with submission threats, arm triangles, and whatever, all that shit he loves from the top, he's at more of a risk of gassing himself out. I think cardio is definitely an issue. It was so evident in the Fluffy Hernandez fight. He crashed and burned. He was dominating Fluffy. But Fluffy turned things around, and he got him out of there with a choke. Fluffy is an excellent submission artist. Cody Brundage is good too, but not like Fluffy Hernandez. So I do think the submission, it always seems like a possibility and whatever because we watched it happen. But I think he would have to run into somebody that has really good, really high submission prowess like Fluffy Hernandez. I can't quite say that about Brundage. I think if Brundage found himself in there with an exhausted Rodolfo Vieira, he's walking away with a TKO win. Although I'd say the same for Fluffy Hernandez too, but the chances are greater of him getting a sub win than Cody Brundage getting a sub win. Rodolfo Vieira has that loss to Chris Curtis. That was his last fight. It was last summer, and It looked good. He looked good in some respects. His striking, my estimation of his striking fucking skyrocketed. And I thought he lost the fight clearly. But my estimation of his cardio plateaued. It didn't move really. You know, he got a nice submission victory between his two losses over Dustin Stoltzfus in round 3. That's a nice feather in his cap, and it was cool to get a third round finish after losing to Fluffy like that, crashing and burning. But then the fight after that, the Chris Curtis, he kind of crashed and burned as well. It was a much different fight, of course, because he wasn't able to wrangle Chris Curtis. But in the end, it wasn't just that he was outgunned on the feet and his calves were hurting, I should say. He was definitely fatigued, and he was relegated to a butt-scooting Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. But anyway, I think this fight breaks down where Rodolfo Vieira wins via finish in rounds 1 or 2, or Cody Brundage wins via round 2 or 3, probably via TKO. I'm going with Vieira, and I'm throwing a sprinkle on the under, but otherwise I'm staying away from Vieira's money line, which is minus 235. I just don't trust that because I think he's too vulnerable. However, a few sprinkles I'm playing are Vieira by TKO. I really liked what I saw from him in the Chris Curtis fight. I think he is a much more capable striker, and I also think Cody Brundage is more vulnerable. He's chinnier. I know William Knight knocked him out, and Michal Oleksiejczuk TKO'd him, but I still think he's more vulnerable. I think Vieira is a freak athlete, and he's maybe not a freak athlete, but he's an excellent athlete whose striking has come along. And I also think the TKO also includes the TKO on the ground, which is almost always overlooked when it comes to these jiu-jitsu guys. I don't want to make Vieira out to be Jelton Almeida or anything. He's much more of a potent submission finisher, of course, Vieira. But Cody Brundage has never been submitted. He's been knocked out twice, you know, and he also was knocked out once as an amateur to Dalton Rosta, who's over in Bellator right now. So in general, I just think there are durability issues, and there's a little room for Vieira to win by cracking his chin or even mounting him with and pounding the shit out of him. So I'll go with that, but my pick is Rodolfo Vieira gets him out of there by submission in round 1, I'll say, the end of round 1. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. Check out my other videos.